Hello everyone. I'm going to be breaking the fourth wall for this intro because I'm not good at writing intros. For all intents and purposes, this video is an exercise to shake off the proverbial ring rust and get myself back into the YouTube mindset because, truth be told, I haven't been in the YouTube mindset in months. And what better way to do that than with a thought experiment that's been bouncing around in my head for the better part of 2 years now. Let us be frank, the lower formula's touring schedule is weird. There's this odd aversion to going to any tracks below FIA Grade 1 level that kneecaps just how expansive and diverse these series can get. The following is how I would improve Formula One's feeder series by fixing their schedules. This will be focused around the Formula Regional level. Formula 4 is spread out enough between the FIA-sanctioned series and the independent series that you get 2 or 3 different F4 series graduating into the regional circuit. Formula Regional is where I first noticed this issue anyways, and that's where I'm going to keep this. Look at this graph. This is what the current and future Formula Regional circuit is going to look like in real life. Scrap all of this. Everything is too spread out. This completely overlooks the racing scenes out there in Eastern Europe, South America, and most of Asia, at least that's what I've seen. I have an idea to make this a bit more inclusive and allow the sickos of the world to enjoy more overall racing. This hypothetical treats money as no object. Several of the tracks that are on these schedules are not rated by the FIA at all. In this scenario, every track is magically upgraded to FIA Grade 3 spec, which seems to be the lower limit for what Formula Regional equipment can handle. Sanctioning costs are also completely ignored. The FIA has cajillions of dollars anyways. They can pay any kind of fee required in the name of competition, don't you think? We're operating on real racetracks only. You won't find me going, oh, I'm gonna fill this section of the schedule by putting a street circuit in this city. First off, I f***ing despise street courses, and all of my choices will make that very clear. Secondly, I'm not really a track designer. I can't make one that makes sense off the dome. So, yeah, only real tracks. No original content. I'm taking from other people's real-life work, other people that are smarter than me. Race weekend structure is simple. 1 sprint race, 1 feature race. There's no reason to deviate from what we know already works in F3 and F2. I know that some series do like 3 races in 1 week, and that works for a series that only goes to like 3 tracks a year. We don't do that here. The different categories are going to be made as wide as possible so that more tracks and more countries can be featured. In a perfect world, this is how it would look. Now let's get on with this thing. We'll start with the part of the world where I'm from. Formula Regional North America will encompass the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Duh. If the Caribbean and Central America had more racing infrastructure, they'd find themselves here as well. Regional North America will serve as a cog in the IndyCar machine by proxy, following the big shows in the Indy Lights series with them around the US before splitting off and doing some extracurricular stuff outside the US. Currently, the road to Indy Ladder's third rung, the USF Pro 2000 series, uses equipment on par with the Formula Regional equipment, so that would make a good jumping off point in both directions. Prospects from the Americas that want to make the jump from the Indy Ladder to the F1 ladder can go straight from USF 2000 to Formula Regional North America, and the prospects from abroad can go from their Formula 4 competition straight into USF Pro 2000. FR North America's season starts on the East Coast on the end of February, on the streets of St. Petersburg. Now, I know this sort of contradicts what I just said about street courses, but 1, the St. Pete Airport has a proven record of good racing dating back to the 80s, unlike most street courses out there today, and 2, it's not my fault that IndyCar starts the season there. If the Indy season started at Homestead Miami Speedway like it used to, we would start on Homestead's road course. Besides, if it makes you feel any better, we are staying far, far away from tracks like Hard Rock Stadium and the Las Vegas Strip. After a month, the series returns at Barber Motorsports Park at the end of March, also serving in companionship with IndyCar. Then, the series goes dormant for a while until the beginning of May, when Indy holds its Indy Road Course weekend before Indy 500 festivities begin. The support for Indy breaks off there as the series then goes north of the border for the summer. The first Canadian race is held at Mosport Raceway Park just outside of Toronto. We then move back east towards Montreal. Formula Regional North America acts in support of Formula 1 at Montreal at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, but sticks around in Quebec for an extra week, as they then go to the Circuit Mont Tremblant. The hills of the Laurentides will definitely make for a unique challenge. We move south back across the border and make a stop at Road America, because I'd be remiss in my duties as a race fan if we didn't send them to the most famous road course in the country. Next up is the Circuit of the Americas in Austin. There was an opportunity to have this be in support of the F1 race, but at this point, if we're following the 2026 calendar, we'd be in the middle of July. We have a long wait before Austin weekend. And then after that, it's Mexico time. Round number 10 is held in Puebla at the Autodromo Miguel E. Abed on the Oval. Formula E once held a race on the road course here, but the oval at Puebla is just over 1.2 miles long. I think these cars can manage a sprint and a feature race on an oval track that small. It would make good oval practice for the prospects that come over from overseas that want to do IndyCar. The penultimate round of the season will be held at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City. Again, we would and could be in support of the Mexican GP, but the Mexican GP is in the fall. We're finishing the schedule before August ends. The season will end in California, with round 12 being held at Laguna Seca. I'm a sucker for topographical uniqueness, hence the Mont Tremblant shout-out from earlier, and conquering the corkscrew would make a good final exam for the best and brightest that the US has to offer. This will be a bit of a theme for this entire hypothetical. I like moving either east or west. We start on the East Coast and end on the West Coast, running on a variety of different racetracks along the way. Formula Regional South America was the series that I racked my brain on the most. Only 2 countries on the continent have a lot of racing infrastructure, and the rest? Yeah, there's some, but they're few and far between. Regardless, I found 12 racetracks in South America to serve as hosts for the potential future of South American motorsports. All 12 of these races are independent from any other series running in the area. They are not in support of any other series such as TC2000, Stock Car Brazil, NASCAR Brazil, Copa Truck, etc., nor does it have any support from series such as Formula 4 Brazil. We are all alone for this one. This is also the series that would need the most work in terms of renovations. Most of the tracks on this circuit are not rated by the FIA at all, but for the purpose of this exercise, let's just pretend that they are. The season begins in Panama, at the Autodromo Panama in La Chorrera. The track gets some GT and touring car action every year, but not much formula stuff. That changes here. The mainland season begins in Guyana at the hilariously named South Dakota Circuit. South Dakota also gets some love from the local GT scene, and gets its first bit of FIA-sanctioned fun on the South American Tour. We go from Guyana to its neighbor to the west, Venezuela, at the San Carlos Circuit. Now, when I was researching this video, I thought this place closed down at first, since it hadn't held any high-profile events since the motorcycle races in the late 1970s, but no, it still exists. It would make for a good financial boon for the San Carlos area and give the locals something to do. We continue moving west to Colombia, where the Autodromo de Tocancipá resides. I think you can tell now we're doing a big circle around the continent. The circle continues in Ecuador at Ibarra. It's not the most high-tech racetrack out there, nor is it all that technically challenging, but the hilly backdrop is just beautiful. The next stop is in Chile at Codegua, giving the series its proper dose of power. Chile is our last stop before making a residency stop in Argentina. Round 7 is held at the Autodromo Termas de Rio Hondo, where the Argentine Motorcycle Grand Prix has been held for the past few years. We then move east to the capital city of Buenos Aires, where the former F1 track is, to host Round 8. Across the Rio de la Plata basin from Buenos Aires is Montevideo, and 30 miles from Montevideo is the Autodromo Victor Borat Fabini, which hosts the next race after that. Up north at the Uruguay-Brazil border is the Autodromo Eduardo Prudencio Cabrera in the town of Rivera, which is the last stop before the home stretch in Brazil. While it doesn't make much sense geographically, putting it together like this makes it feel bigger. The penultimate race of the FR South America season will be held at the Autodromo Internacional Ayrton Senna in Goiânia, former home of the Brazilian Motorcycle Grand Prix and current home of Stock Car Pro, NASCAR Brazil, and Porsche Cup Brazil. The season finale, naturally, will be held at the most famous track on the continent, the Autodromo José Carlos Pach in Sao Paulo. The place where it all began gets a series all to itself because they have enough racetracks to pull it off. This is the only series that gets just 10 races because there weren't that many tracks in the UK that were FIA rated. More than the average, but still not enough to reach my self-imposed upper limit of 12. The first half of the season will follow the British Touring Car Championship around because God knows that series needs another support race on its package. The Formula Regional Britain season begins alongside the BTCCs at Donington Park at the beginning of April. It then follows them to Brands Hatch, where they race around the big Grand Prix circuit at the beginning of May to send off the Indy Week for the touring cars, then to Snetterton to end the month of May, then a week later at Oulton Park, and then 2 weeks later after that at Thruxton. We are just moving right along. The BTCC support ends after round 6 at Knockhill in Scotland, where the series splits off to travel the rest of the British Isles on its own. In July, the series takes the long trek from Fife to the Welsh island of Anglesey and holds the Welsh Grand Prix at Track Môn. After Track Môn comes the Pembrey circuit closer to Cardiff, the shortest track on the calendar. After a quick break, the series crosses the Irish Sea over to the other big island in the area for the Irish Grand Prix at Mondello Park. Mondello's in rough shape compared to what it used to be back in the 2000s when the BTCC went over there, but in this reality, it's grade 3 and perfectly usable. We get through at Mondello Park just in time to link back up with the touring cars for the double season finales of the place that started it all, Silverstone. Wow, that was quick. Here's where stuff gets good. Here's where stuff gets diverse. Mainland Europe has been split into East and West, as there's enough tracks out there to facilitate 2 series split along the old Iron Curtain border. Well, sort of. The series gets a late start, for a good reason. Race number 1 of Formula Regional Western Europe will act as a support race for the Spanish Grand Prix at Catalunya in June. We then move back west to hit Portugal at Estoril to make sure that we hit everyone on this tour, before going back east to Aragon, at Motorland where they hold the Spanish Motorcycle Grand Prix. After Aragon, we then take a long residence in... France. 4 straight races along the French countryside. First at the Le Mans Bugatti circuit for that extra bit of prestige, then at the circuit Nevers-Magny-Cours for a possible test run. If people are interested in F1 going there, perhaps having the smaller cars go there first to test the waters would be a good start. It's sort of like how NASCAR is bringing back Chicagoland this year for the 2026 season. Magny-Cours is followed up by a deep cut, Dijon-Prenois. It's shorter than average, but the former home of the Swiss Grand Prix has potential to be a fun power track for the lower formula equipment. The French stretch will end on the southern coast, at the circuit Paul Ricard. We leave Hell just in time to meet back up with Formula 1 in heaven, at the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, the Cathedral of Speed. Monza is followed up by Imola as a break from the power track run that we found ourselves on. And then, Germany. You'd think we would run directly to Hockenheim, but I made a quote-unquote promise to a friend of mine that lives in the area to go elsewhere. A week after Zolder, the series makes a stop just outside Magdeburg at the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben. Austria is next, and we're overdosing on power again. The season ends at the Nürburgring on the GP circuit. Perhaps this is a rotating date. 1 year it's at the Nürburgring, and then the next it's at Hockenheim. That would be cool to me, at least for a couple years, to see which track wants F1 more. With Audi's entrance back into F1, we could see a return to Germany on the biggest stage again, and what better way to test that than for the regional series? Western Europe has a decent blend of high power and downforce tracks to choose from, making it a mighty challenge for Europe's stars of the future. In Soviet Russia, Car Race U. A full series across the Iron Curtain is a first for the FIA. They venture over it every so often, but they've yet to truly take advantage of all the permanent racing infrastructure that they have over there. The Formula Regional Eastern Europe season begins in April at the Polish Grand Prix at Poznan. We go from Poland to 2 dates in Czechia, first at the Autodrom Most for the Czech Grand Prix, then at the Brno circuit where the MotoGP race is held before moving on to their next-door neighbors in Slovakia. Slovakia has the creatively named Slovakia Ring outside Bratislava, and that holds round number 4. This leads us to the end of July, where the F1 season has penciled in the Hungarian Grand Prix. We meet up with them there as a support ticket. After Hungary, we go north to Sweden, to the Anderstorp Airfield, the former home of the Swedish Grand Prix. Scandinavian Raceway isn't in the same shape that it used to be, but it's still got that Grade 2 rating, so I don't see a reason why we can't use it. After a couple weeks break, the circus makes its home in Belarus, for the Belarusian Grand Prix at the Smolensk Ring. Not rated by the FIA, but it is designed by Herman Tilke. F4 raced there at one point, so that should tell you how easy it would be to get the track to FIA Grade 3 spec. Directly to the south is Istanbul Park, where they should be racing F1 this year, and that's where we hold the next round. Now we find ourselves at the beginning of September, where the Baku Grand Prix is penciled in. Baku is one of the few street courses that I don't mind, as it's a pretty good mix of both power and technical ability. It's a bit too square, but it's fast, so whatever. Our trek at east ends in Russia, for a 3-race end-of-season stretch, first in St. Petersburg at Igora Drive, then at Moscow Raceway in the nation's capital, and then ending the season at the former home of the Russian Grand Prix, the Sochi Autodrome. Perhaps the lower formula can get more out of it than the big boys used to. It's my belief that Eastern Europe stars never really gets a shot because they don't race at a high level as often over there. With this series, the future Robert Kubicas and Vitaly Petrovs of the world can get their shot to perform in front of the world. We now move on to what will likely be the most popular winter series out of the group, as well as the spiritual successor to what sparked this entire creative exercise. One night, I looked up the Formula Regional Middle East Championship on Wikipedia, scrolled down to the schedule section, and then laughed for 5 straight minutes. The massive explosion of racetracks in the Middle East get the vast majority of these slots, and I had to fill the final stretch with some surprise additions that many wouldn't have thought about. As you will soon see, I took a few liberties as to what constitutes as Western Asia. The season begins on the first weekend of December, as a support race for the F1 season finale at Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi parlays into Sakhir, where they probably would be holding the season opener had I not thought of the support for Abu Dhabi idea. From Sakhir, we turn northwest to Istanbul Park as the last race of the 2025 calendar in Turkey. After Turkey comes Baku, where the colder than usual weather will prove to be a challenge for setup. They don't have to worry about the cold for long, as most of this season is held in 70+ degree heat. Round 5 is held at Jeddah. Yeah, not much to say about Jeddah. It's Jeddah. The week after Jeddah, we run to the Dubai Autodrome for a race there, in support of the Asian Le Mans Series 4 Hours of Dubai. We return to Saudi Arabia for round 7 at Reem International Circuit, where we hold the biggest event that the fledgling racetrack has ever held. It's not currently rated by the FIA, but it is within driving distance of Riyadh, so it's worth a shot. Maybe folks can come out from the city to watch the kids strut their stuff in the middle of the desert. What else is there to do in Riyadh? Anything? Anyways, off to Kuwait Motor Town for the Kuwaiti Grand Prix. This place is really fun to hot lap, so I have a soft spot for it. This is another track that I want to see on the F1 calendar at some point in the future. If the FIA is willing to take money from the royal families to waste a race weekend out in the middle of the desert, it might as well be on a track that's fun to race on for once, instead of tracks like Jeddah. The Middle Eastern Loop ends at Lusail International Circuit in Qatar. That's only 9 races. Here's where I start reaching a bit. Round 10 is held in Kazakhstan at the Sokol International Racetrack. This place was rumored to be holding MotoGP events back in 2023 and 2024, but those never materialized. Formula Regional would be the first big-time racing event ever held at the track, in fact. This place has gotten the short end of the stick, and it's about time it gets its big break. The season ends in India, first at the Madras Motor Racetrack in Chennai, and then finally at the former home of the Indian Grand Prix, the Bood International Circuit in Greater Noida. This would end up carrying us over into March, hopefully before the Formula One season begins. Formula Regional Eastern Asia is more than just a spiritual successor to the Formula Regional Japan series that currently exists. Sure, most of the series is held in Japan on the support bill for Super Formula, but the second half of the series ventures outside of the land of the rising sun, filling niches that the big boys either forgot about or never got to. Formula Regional equipment is a step below Super Formula Lights, so I guess you could count this series as a bottom rung to the Super Formula ladder for the folks that aim for Super Formula, as well as a place for Japanese prospects to go from regionals to International Formula 3. The season begins in an on-again, off-again support relationship with Super Formula, as the Super Formula schedule is monthly. I'm not one for long breaks like that, so we find other things to do in the meantime. Round 1 is at Twin Ring Motegi in support of Super Formula. Round 2 is at Fuji Speedway, by ourselves. Round 3 is at Autopolis, again in support of Super Formula. Round 4 is at Okayama, on our own. Round 5 is at Suzuka, the only race where Supers, Lights, and Regional are all in the same place at the same time. The end of the Japan Tour will be at Sugo, a couple months before Super Formula makes its stop there. The second half of the year is an international tour. We go to Shanghai on the only Chinese race on the schedule. Truth be told, I could have split off China into its own series, since the FIA's list of rated racetracks has like 70 million racetracks in China on it. However, I wanted every series to have, a soul, so I decided against it. Round 8 is where the Lipao International Circuit in Taiwan gets its big break on the lower formula ladder. I was just as surprised as you are to learn that Taiwan had its own racetrack, let alone had one that was rated at Grade 2. That makes it perfect for the regional kids to race on. Round 9 is the Thai Grand Prix at Buriram, the current home of the Thai Motorcycle Grand Prix. Rounds 10 and 11 are in Korea, first at India Speedium, and then at the Yeongam Circuit. The season ends at Sepang, as another test run for potential F1 return. Like every Boomer fan, I love Sepang with all my heart, and I would look to involve it in as many things as I possibly can. So that marks the ends of Formula Regional Western Asia, and that leaves just one last series to cover. Josh Revel is smiling upon me, as the spirit of the Toyota Racing Series lives on, as a winter series for the truly based. Instead of going to the Middle East, kick it with the Aussies and Kiwis, it would make you so much cooler. Formula Regional Oceania's season begins on the Adelaide Street Course as support billing for the V8 Supercars season finale. From Adelaide, we go to Surfers Paradise, because Surfers Paradise is cool. The old IndyCar races were awesome back in the day, and I want to rekindle that same fire again. Round 3 is held at Sydney, the first true power track on the schedule. Sandown is next after that, which could be a bit iffy since like 90% of the lap is flat out, but I believe in our equipment, it can manage. The Australian Tour is bookended by the Melbourne Street Circuit at Albin Park, as one last dosage of power before we start doing the technical stuff abroad. Round 6 is held at the Marina Bay Street Course in Singapore. We had to have a race on one of the other islands, so the Oceania name would actually make sense. From Singapore, we head to Indonesia around the Sentul International Circuit in West Java. We then loop back to New Zealand to the circuit Chris Amon in Fielding. After Fielding comes Hampton Park, the official home of the New Zealand Grand Prix, and then to Taronga Park, the southernmost FIA-recognized racetrack, fun fact. Then we make our way to Christchurch, at the track that they have there that keeps changing its name. At one point it was Ruapuna Park, and then it was Powerbuilt Raceway, and then it was named after some guy, and now it's under some other name, but all I know is that it's just outside Christchurch, so I'm just gonna call it Christchurch, home of the Lady Wigram Trophy. We return to Australia for the season finale at Bathurst. No, we're not in support of the Bathurst 1000, we're by ourselves. The Bathurst Grand Prix around Mount Panorama acts as an important lesson in how to not wreck an expensive race car. A high-stakes lesson in car control for the kids, if you will. Not to mention the prestige of racing around a track like Bathurst. Looks good on the resume. And that is where I'm going to call it. I thought about doing the Academy as well as F3 and F2, but this script and this video are already pretty long as is, and I don't want to burn myself out too early. Let me know in the comments what changes you'd make to the lower Formula ranks and what tracks I missed out on that you think would be cool for the lower Formula cars to race on. If you're also interested in what I would do for the other lower Formula, let me know of that too. I'm more than open to doing F3, F2, and the Academy as their own video, but again, I didn't want to make this video like an hour long. I'm always open to discussion about these hypothetical things that I do. Alright, that's it from me. I have been Bobcat205, and thank you for watching. See you next time!